Hello students and welcome to today's biology class. So in the previous class we had discussed about the common features of chordata and we have seen into the initial classes of the phylum chordata, and today we'll discuss the same topic. We'll continue from the same topic and we will be discussing about the four classes belonging to tetrapoda. Okay, so these classes are class Amphibia, class Reptilia, class Apes and class Mammalia. So let's begin with the first one, which is your class Amphibia. Now the word amphi literally means dual or both and bias means life. तो आप लोग जानते ही हो amphi का मतलब होता है दोनों, both and bias इसका मतलब होता है life. So these animals can survive both on land and water. That is the reason they are called as amphibians. Now, if you look at their body, the body is divided into three parts, mainly three parts: the head segment, the trunk, and the tail. Body is divisible into three parts: head, trunk, and tail. May be present or absent. यहाँ पे ये may be present or absent, it is said for the tail. तो आप लोग देखोगे कुछ amphibians होते हैं जिसका tail होता है तो कुछ का नहीं भी होता. So they might possess a tail or they might not possess a tail. This is a general body feature. The most common example of amphibians is the frog. तो एज यू कैन सी इसके बॉडी में आप देख सकते हो कि टेल नहीं है. इनिशियली होता है इन द फ्रॉग, द टेल इज जनरली देयर ड्यूरिंग इट्स लार्वल एंड tadpole stage, but later on it slowly degenerates. Sorry students. The skin is moist without scales. तो आप यहाँ पे देखोगे इनके बॉडी में कोई स्केल्स नहीं है. इससे पहले जो दो ग्रुप हमने डिस्कस किया था, दैट इज योर chondriocthys and ostricthys. The fishes basically their body is covered with scales, either cycloid scales or placoid scales. But these organisms, as because they are amphibious, they do not have any scale on their body. It is very smooth and sometimes slippery, moist रहता है. And eyes have eyelids. इनके eyes के eyelids होते हैं. The next point is there is a common opening of alimentary canal, reproductive tract, and urinary tract called cloaca. Now this is a very unique feature. यहाँ पे आप देखोगे ये जो ग्रुप है एम्फीबियन, इनका एलिमेंट्री कैनल मतलब डाइजेस्टिव सिस्टम, रिप्रोडक्टिव ट्रैक्ट, यूरिनरी ट्रैक्ट, तीनों का एक ही ओपनिंग होता है. जनरली यू विल फाइंड कि इन हायर ऑर्गेनिजम्स all these three different systems, digestive system, reproductive system, urinary system, they open through different openings. But in this case you'll find that they have only a single opening. So the three different organ systems, that is your alimentary canal, digestive system, reproductive system, and the urinary system, they have a single opening called as cloaca. Now this cloaca is generally present at the point where the tail starts. ठीक है, यहाँ पे आप लोग देख सकते हो, this is salamander. So on the salamander, just behind the hind legs and just from the point where the tail starts, you'll find this structure called as cloaca. They do not have a complete ear, external ear नहीं होता इनमें, but they do have a tympanum. एक tympanum होता है which is just like a membrane. ये बहुत पतला सा एक membrane जैसा होता है. So this tympanum serves as their hearing organ. यही इनके sound को receive करता है and it gives them the sound from the atmosphere. So this is a kind of sensory organ, as you know. The next point is respiration can occur through gills, through lungs or through skin. तो हायर एनिमल्स में ज़्यादातर स्किन से रेस्पिरेशन नहीं होता, बट दिस इज अ वेरी कॉमन यूनिक एग्जांपल जहाँ पे देखो ये तीनों टाइप के रेस्पिरेशन कर सकते हैं थ्रू द गिल्स, लाइक इट ऑकर्स इन द फिशेस. So this generally takes place during their tadpole stage or the larval stage. Lungs, when they grow up, when they're adult, they respire through the lungs, and yes, they can also respire through the skin. If anyway you block their respiratory pathway, they can respire through the skin. The heart is three-chambered. Now before this we had seen the heart was two-chambered in case of fishes, but here the heart is three-chambered, having two auricles, that is the upper chamber, and one ventricle, that is the lower chamber. The auricles receive the blood and the ventricles, they transmit the blood. These are also cold-blooded animals, pykilothermal, because they cannot regulate their body temperature. तो अकॉर्डिंग टू द एटमॉस्फेयर, उनका एटमॉस्फेयर जब चेंज होता है तो अपने एटमॉस्फेयर के हिसाब से उनको भी थोड़ा थोड़ा चेंजेस करने पड़ते हैं. इफ देयर इज more heat in the atmosphere, they will go to some shady places or into the water, and where there is very cold atmospheric condition outside, they will go for sun bath. तो वो लोग बास्किंग करते हैं. बास्किंग का मतलब होता है दे गो एंड दे सिट ऑन ए रॉक सरफेस और एनी सरफेस वेयर दे कैन रिसीव सनलाइट. ओके. Now sexes are separate, fertilization is external, are oviparous and development is indirect. तो ये 4 पॉइंट्स मैंने आपको पहले भी बताया है. सेपरेट मतलब मेल एंड फीमेल विल बी डिफरेंट. फर्टिलाइजेशन इज एक्सटर्नल. हियर द मेल एंड फीमेल गैमेट विल फ्यूज आउटसाइड द बॉडी, नॉट इनसाइड द बॉडी. ठीक है. तो जनरली वाटर बॉडीज में ये लोग करते हैं. द फीमेल विल गो एंड ले द एग्स एंड द मेल विल कम एंड डिपोजिट द sperms over the eggs. So this is called as external fertilization. Oviparous means they lay eggs, they do not give birth to the young ones. Development is indirect. जैसे मैंने आपको थोड़ी देर पहले बताया कि इनके लार्वल स्टेजेस में लंग्स होता है. दैट मीन्स कि दे हैव ए लार्वल स्टेज, दे हैव एन इंटरमीडिएट स्टेज, सो देयर डेवलपमेंट इज कॉल्ड indirect. Common examples: Bufo melanostictus, that is toad; Rana tigrina, frog; Hyla, that is tree frog; salamander; इक्थायोफिस, दैट इज लिम्बलेस एम्फीबियन. सो ये एक एम्फीबियन होता है जिसके हाथ पैर नहीं होते हैं. इट लुक्स मोर और लेस लाइक ए स्नेक, बट इट इज एन एम्फीबियन. ओके, so let us see these organisms how they look like. The first one on your screen is toad. You can differentiate a toad because its skin surface is very rough and it does not have interdigit membranes. मतलब इसके जो hind legs होते हैं उसके fingers के बीच में कोई membrane नहीं होता. You can differentiate it from that. This is a frog. Frog are generally, you'll find ki mostly aquatic, though we call them as amphibians, but majority of their life they spend in water, whereas toad, they can be more or less terrestrial, you can say, in one way. This is tree frog. As you know, tree frog come in different colors and ये भी frog variety को ही belong करते हैं. They are not toads. This is salamander. Salamander also evolved in such a manner कि इसका एक moist skin होता है. Though it looks like lizard, but it is an amphibian. It do not have scales. It has a moist skin. And the last one, as I was telling you, ichthyophis. Ichthyophis, it is the limbless amphibian. It does not have any limbs. Hands, legs नहीं होते. Looks like a snake, but it is an amphibian. This was the first of the 4 classes from Tetrapoda. The second class of Tetrapoda is Reptilia. The word reptiles, as you know, this is mentioned for a specific group of organisms. Now the word repair, which means to creep or crawl. The reptiles, they crawl or creep on the land. दे डू नॉट कम्प्लीटली वर्क ऑन 2 legs. अपराइट नहीं चल सकते हैं वो लोग. तो वो इस तरह से चलते हैं कि उनका जो बेली सरफेस है दैट टचेस द ग्राउंड. तो इसीलिए उसको हम लोग बोलते हैं रेप्टाइल, बिकॉज रिपियर वर्ड का मीनिंग होता है टू क्रीप और क्रॉल, क्योंकि वो क्रीप करते हैं या फिर क्रॉल करते हैं. दे कैन नॉट वॉक. ठीक है. They are mostly terrestrial animals with rough cornified scales covered with scales, scutes और shields. तो उनका स्किन जो होता है बहुत रफ होता है, cornified होता है, means it is hard, layered structure you can say, and it can consist of 3 different kinds of external covering, that is your scales. Scales हो सकते हैं. बहुत सारे रेप्टाइल्स आप लोग देखे भी होंगे कि रेप्टाइल्स का जो बॉडी होता है वो स्केल से कवर होता है. स्क्यूट्स होते हैं उनमें. ना स्क्यूट्स, these are generally found in crocodiles and all. आप देखोगे क्रोकोडाइल के पीठ पे चौड़े चौड़े प्लेट जैसे स्ट्रक्चर्स होते हैं, so that is cute. Shield can also be there. Shield is also seen in some of the reptiles, which actually covers the body in one way. It is a protective covering, you can say. Now these are the scales. As you can see in snakes, it is very distinctly observed. उनके scales होते हैं. The whole body is covered with such scales. And these are scutes. Scutes are seen in case of turtles, tortoise, crocodile. इस ग्रुप में आपको देखने को मिलेगा. उनका बॉडी का जो आउटर कवरिंग होता है ऐसे बॉक्स या फिर हेक्सागोनल, पोलीगोनल शेप्स से कवर्ड होता है टाइल लाइक मैनर में. इसको बोला जाता है scutes. They do not have external ear but possess tympanum for hearing. Now this property is quite similar to that of the amphibians जो हमने इससे पहले देखा कि इनका tympanum होता है. कोई external ear तो नहीं होता, but there is a very thin membrane called tympanum which helps them to hear. Now if limbs are present, then generally in 2 pairs. तो इनके 2 pair of limbs होते हैं. Front 2 limbs, that is called as the forelimb, and back 2 limbs which are called as the hind limbs. तो उनके 4 पैर होते हैं. 2 पैर आगे की तरफ, 4 limbs, 2 पैर पीछे की तरफ, hind limbs. But in some cases you'll find कि it is also not present. कुछ में limbs नहीं होता. जैसे आपका example हो गया snake. Snakes, they do not have limbs. ठीक है. Heart is generally 3 chambered. जनरली आप देखोगे कि इनका कुछ कुछ प्रॉपर्टी एम्फीबियंस के साथ मिलता है। तो इनका जो हार्ट होता है वो 3 चैम्बर्ड ही होता है। सेम देयर आर 2 ऑरिकल्स एंड 1 वेंट्रिकल एज वी हैव ऑलरेडी सीन इन केस ऑफ योर एम्फीबियंस, except in crocodile. Now, crocodile is one such reptile which has a 4 chambered heart. It's a very advanced kind of a reptile. Now, ये जो crocodiles होते हैं, they are very much evolved. They are very highly evolved, in fact. These have lived from millions and millions of years without much change in their body. तो उनके बॉडी में ज़्यादा चेंज नहीं हुआ है और वो लोग मिलियंस एंड मिलियंस ऑफ ईयर्स तक सर्वाइव कर गए। इनफैक्ट दे एग्जिस्टेड at the time of the dinosaurs and they are existing right now as well. So इनके बॉडी के फीचर्स बहुत एडवांस्ड हैं because through evolution they have become very evolved to such kind of environmental conditions. So that is the reason कि इनमें ये एक एडवांस्ड फीचर होता है, इनके बॉडी में 4 chambered heart होता है in place of 3 chambered heart as seen in most of the reptiles. Now this is how the 3 chambered heart looks like. Now sometimes it is also referred to as 3.5 chambered heart. इसको 3.5 chambered heart बोलने का main reason है, upper 2 chambers are the auricles or the atrium. Now here you can see there is a ventricle. The lower chamber is a ventricle, but this ventricle is half divided, not completely divided. तो कभी कभी इसको 3.5 chambered heart बोल के भी रेफर किया जाता है, but generally it is the 3 chambered heart. We mention it as 3 chambered heart in case of reptiles. They are also cold-blooded animals. They cannot uh, regulate their body temperature. Whenever the atmospheric temperature changes, इनके भी body का temperature change हो जाएगा. तो keeping that into mind, you will find कि these organisms specifically, they have this tendency of going into the sun during the winters and they go underground during the summers. Okay. Now the next point is the snakes and lizards shed their scales as skin cast, shedding moulting ecdysis. तो ये जो स्नेक्स या लिजर्ड्स होते हैं वो अपना आउटर स्किन डिस्कार्ड करते हैं टाइम टू टाइम, विद इन 2-3 months they will change their skin and then a new layer of scales will develop below it. इसको बोला था शेडिंग, माउल्टिंग या फिर इक्डाइसिस. दिस इज अ प्रोसेस बाय व्हिच दे कैन एक्चुअली डेवलप, क्योंकि इनका बॉडी का बाहर का जो कवरिंग होता है बहुत हार्ड होता है. So it is difficult to grow skin above the scales. So once the outer layer of scales are gone, again the skin can grow, they can enlarge, and again new scales can be formed. So that is called as shedding, moulting or ecdysis. You might have seen this. Snakes बहुत commonly करते हैं. कुछ कुछ जगह पे आप लोग देखे होंगे कि snakes अपना कास्ट, स्किन कास्ट छोड़ गए होंगे, तो उसको हिंदी में केंचुली बोला जाता है. So this is how they grow. Sexes are separate, means male and female will be different. Fertilization is internal. It takes place inside the body of the female individual. Oviparous, they lay eggs and direct development. इनमें कोई indirect development नहीं होता. The way they are born, they will just grow in size. No intermediate larval stage is seen. Common examples: Callion, that is the turtle; Testudo, tortoise; Calotes, garden lizard; Crocodilus, crocodile; Naza naza, cobra; Vipera, viper. ठीक है. Viper means these are snakes. Cobra and vipers are snakes. This is turtle. This is tortoise. Again, similar with toad and frogs. यहाँ पे भी आप देख सकते हो one variety of the this shield organisms which we call as turtles and tortoise. The turtles, they are generally aquatic. They live or they spend their most of the time in the ocean only, and only to lay eggs they come to the soil. Whereas these organisms, we call them as tortoise, they are mostly terrestrial. They don't go into water, they cannot swim. अगर इनको आप पानी में छोड़ दोगे वो डूब जाएंगे. So tortoise are terrestrial and turtles are aquatic. Tortoise का legs होता है, turtles का flippers होता है. So this is how you can identify them. ठीक है. Next one, garden lizard, Calotes. This most commonly you might have seen in your garden, very commonly seen. The Besides that, you'll also find the crocodile, the largest of the reptiles, as it is mentioned. They can be more than 1 ton in weight at times. And this is Naza naza, cobra, very common venomous snake in our part of the world. And we also have the viper. Now these viperous snakes are also very much sensitive to heat and all, and they also are venomous in nature, the vipers. So these are the different groups of organisms belonging to the class Reptilia. So students, in the next class, we will move on and we'll discuss the rest two of the classes, that is your apes and mammalia. Thank you. Thank you everyone.